Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today we are going to be taking a look at a revamped case from Coolermaster. So we're going to take a look at the Coolermaster I want to say TD500, but that's wrong. It's TD500 V2. That's where the V comes in. I was trying to say it a little bit earlier than I should have been. Anyway, the long and short of it is tempered glass, 3 120mm RGB fans, and they've squeezed all this in for less than £100. I'm being told £99 GBP price for this. Now the thing is that does seem quite cheap, especially where you still get the tempered glass, but it does make me worry if it's going to perform well. So let's get in, have a look around, and then find out if it does. Starting at the front and the top, as always, you have your power button in the middle. Now this is the lighting button, which is actually connected into the little lighting controller that I'll show you in a minute, but you can wire this up to the reset switch if you would like instead. Now you do get a USB type C over here, and it's 3.2 Gen 2, and then you get 2 more USB 3s over here. You can see, because you can just see that there is a bit of grey down the side of the case, but the highlight colours that are not white are actually a really lovely grey, including the magnetic mesh on the roof. What else? The other thing that you can see on the roof, now that I've removed the mesh, is the offset radiator mounts. Now, you do have 120mm and 140mm fan mounts, and you could easily get a fan and a 30mm radiator above the motherboard anyway, but where it's so far set over, you could probably get push-pull fans on that 30mm radiator, or even a 60mm radiator comfortably in above most non-crazy height DRAM modules. One of the things that the TD500 was famed for was the textured and 3D effect. Well, it's not actually an effect because it is actually 3D, but the 3D mesh in the front of the case. Now, depending on the angle that you catch the light at, you obviously then see the shadows better. And it's a really nice touch. The straight on view is actually really nice as well, although when you are directly in front of it, again, it's going to depend on the shadows that catch in your room once the fans and everything are on. Now, I've not got the fans connected to the motherboard, although you can use your motherboard software to control these if you like. But I'm just going to skip through the options that you can see here. Now, the only thing I would say is when you get to the solid colours later on where they're not kind of moving around, I haven't been able to find a way to stop them from pulsing like this. Someone may be able to tell me in the comments, but it wasn't blatantly obvious. I tried double tapping and I tried holding the button down, but when you do that, they just go off. So that's another good thing. Press and hold the lighting button and they go off, for those of you that don't like RGB. But I did think it would have been nice to have been able to have picked a colour like the blue and it stay static rather than pulsing, as you can see here. I probably would have run with the white that you can see there, but I'd want them to have just stayed lit all the time. You get some of the nice RGB rainbow puke modes that you can use if you don't have a motherboard with the RGB out, but if you do, then you can control it with your motherboard software. Makes life really easy. The front panel comes off with a simple pull, which is really quite nice. I do like the design of their logo now. It's so simplistic, but you just know it's them, and that's pretty cool. Now, no actual separate dust filtering going on, but it is their fine mesh, and we'll see about, you know, if there's a performance problem with this in a minute, but there is quite a bit of gap between the fans and the outside of the mesh, so I'm hoping it's going to breathe quite well. Now you can see you've got 3 120mm fans in the front, but if you wanted to, you could swap that out and you could easily put a pair of 140s in there if you did want to swap them around, because there is a second set of mounts that you can see just down the outside of the fans there. Round the back, really standard layout, power supply at the bottom, 120mm fan that you can move up and down. You can see above here the amount of room that you have between the top of the motherboard and the case, and this is why you can easily get a radiator above the motherboard, but then because the mounts are all offset, means you've obviously got that extra room, again becoming a fairly standard thing now. Little extra vent down the side for that end of your graphics card that we always forget that's there, but it does mean that there's no native with the case vertical mount, but Coolermaster do sell separate vertical mounting kits which will easily go in this, that you won't have a problem with. And then the only thing to show you on the bottom, if I was to tip the case up, would be the mesh dust filter for the power supply, which, let's face facts, is a fairly kind of it's just something we expect now. Now when we move round to the back of the case, the back panel is actually a tiny bit shorter than the main panel, as you can see at the top over here. Now when you do pull it off, over here you can see the fan controller over here. So this is a fan controller and your RGB controller, and it does say, and I'm actually going to zoom you in so that you can see, but it does say reset switch on the tab down here. Now this would obviously, you can take that off and wire it into your motherboard if you do not want to use this. Now the only reason why you'd not want to use this in reality is if you're going to use your motherboard software control stuff, again, if you want to. But you can add another fan and RGB fan on if you want to, or because it's just a 3-pin out, you could use it for an RGB strip if you wanted to, but you've got the input for the controller down here if you want to connect it to your motherboard, but the fan is there, and if it's an RGB fan connector, then you can obviously put it there, or like I said, you can use it for a strip or something if you wanted. There is a 3.5-inch hard drive bay in the bottom, which I've just stuffed cables into, and that does allow you to kind of hide some of the cables a little bit. I tend not to go overboard with trying to make the case reviews too tidy now, because it kind of shows it in a real world sense, but then also, like, because I have to spend so much time and doing other things and stuff, I don't want to sit here for 3 hours trying to get all the cables tidy. It does give you some inspiration on how you can not do it at home, because this could be just a quick throw it in system for you. And if you were to want to make it extra tidy, yes, that was my phone, you've got lots of cable tie down points throughout the case. They're across the top, down the sides, down behind the motherboard tray, down here, and there's even more up this side as well. There's some pass-through grommets, or holes I should say, for front panel fans at the front of the case. And really that's all we have to report around the back of the case, other than the fact that you get about 20mm of room around the back of the case, which means that with a system like this in, I don't even have to worry about fitting the back panel, because it just goes on without any worry. Gone are the days where we're having to push things down to get things fitted. Now, round to the main side of the case. Now, on the old TD500, we would have been removing 4 screws from the side panel, which isn't difficult, but when you've worked with a lot of cases, as I have, it can be a bit of a pain in the bum, and you do have to lean it over to get the screws in, or you're kind of holding on to it. But thankfully, there is normally a thumb screw here, but I've removed it. But look at this. How simple was that? They've got little tabs at the top and a little rail at the bottom, and it's really easy to put on. Just locate the bottom of the rail and then push, and it grips closed. Really simple. The glass has also got this kind of machined, milled, however they've done it, texture to it to give it a little bit more extra feel. You'll either like it or you're not going to be bothered about it. I don't dislike it, but I'm not bothered about it either. But I do like the fact that they've got a grey border around the outside of the window. I like the grey with the white. That is great. Now, other things to look at on the side of the case. You've obviously got your power supply cover up here. Now this I genuinely love, because some people put their fans on the power supply pointing down. So if it's pointing down, it's sucking up from the bottom and then blowing out the back. But it depends with your power supply whether you can actually see nice things or not. And what they've done is they've got this little cover, and I love it. Like, I love this thing so much. It's so simple, but it's brilliant, because it means you have a window if you have a nice logo there that you want to show off. If you do take this off, I would personally say get yourself a white LED strip and put it down the inside of the case to light up your power supply if you want to show it off. But if you don't want to show your power supply off, you can literally just clip it back up and hide it. So simple, but so brilliant. So yeah, as you can tell, I like that. Now, changing the height of the camera, as I've shown you, there is a lot of room above the motherboard tray. There is over 60mm of room above there, which means you can put a set of fans and a 30mm radiator there easily. But it also means that you, because of the offset mounts, that if you wanted to, you can put a fat radiator in there as well. There's also plenty of room down the front if you wanted to put your reservoir here, but the front could hold a radiator as well. You could put two 360mm radiators in this case if you wanted. And if it was me, then I'd probably hide my pump and reservoir underneath down the bottom where the mechanical hard drive cage is, or you could get brave and have it mounted down the side over here. There's lots of configuration options like that. The fact for £100 you can put two 360mm radiators in is epic. And so often nowadays we see cases without grommets, so it's nice that they've still put them in. The only thing I think could have made it ever so slightly better would have been some grommets there at the top. Now they're just open cuts so that you can poke your cables through, and I think if they had have put those there, then they'd have needed to have put them there. And this is also the height that the door is on the other side. This is that extra panel that you can see above the door on the other side. But overall, simple but well thought out layout with some really nice touches there, giving you the option to be able to do loads at home depending on what you actually want to do with it. You can put loads of rads in, loads of airflow in. It's just easy peasy. The only thing I will say is, again, moving the camera without really doing much, is that white fan in the back is what I've added in for the testing because it didn't come with them. I've started to add a very simple fan in to help with airflow where there should be fans. So this rear one, I would say there should be a fan there. And I would like to have seen an RGB fan there from Coolermaster that matched the fronts, if I'm honest. But the fact that we did manage to, or they have managed to keep the price under £100, obviously if you're going to end up adding fans in the roof with an AIO or something like that, you might get a fan that matches that. But I do hope Coolermaster make the front fan easily available, and that is a critical point. It's not just available, but easily available, that you can add it on in the basket with retailers so that you can have an exact same fan that is in the front, in the rear, and it's not something that they've said to me about, it's not something that they've sent me details about, but I just hope that they do make it simple to make you guys at home's life easier as well. Now, the front fans spin up to 1300 RPM. I've obviously said I've added in the Be Quiet fan in the back, but it's not a torrent of air that comes out the back of this. It's a very quiet fan. But I do it just so that there's a bit of airflow added in, because everyone at home, or most people at home, because some, weirdly, some PC builders don't add these in the back before they send them to you. It's something you have to obviously pay extra for, but it's... Anyway, I'm waffling. So I've added it in, but it's not a very fast or massive airflow fan. It's very quiet. Now the temperatures for the graphics card with the fans in the front at 1300 RPM actually looked very good, and it was starting to look like it could have been a great airflow case. But taking the same graph but sorting it for the CPU, you can see it goes into the top third. And that's where the other results stayed when we dropped the front fans down to 1000 RPM and then also down to 600 RPM. So it's not ashamed itself at all. And I do need to stress the fact that at the end of the day, you are probably going to use a different fan in the rear. You can easily add more in the roof. And if you add an AIO in as well, it's obviously going to change the dynamics of the case entirely. But it is a very, very good basis for a decent airflow case. There isn't a problem with airflow in the front. It's just more that you kind of need to get the air moving as well. And this rear one isn't going to be doing it any favours. Could say that's my fault, but it didn't come with a fan, so I added one in, and that's not something I would normally do. So very, very good case for £100, and I would give it the OC3D Value for Money award. Obviously you can put the water cooling in it, you can put loads more fans in it for airflow. It does tick a lot of boxes and is a great case that comes in under £100, and that is something I think we do need to cherish at the moment, where we're trying to get our money to go as far as we possibly can do, and I think this has probably come at the perfect time. I've got a funny feeling this is one of, if not the most popular, as in they've sold more of these than any of the other cases that they've ever done, and I think this is going to be a great addition, especially now they've got a much better side panel on it as well. Literally, I don't really have anything bad to say about it. So rather than waffling on for ages, I am going to say thank you very much for tuning in. Please like, subscribe and comment if you would like to see more from me. But for now at least, this is the tiniest one with another video for you. Out. Ding! Love you, sis.